Well, it's a rare victory pod here on the DNVR Rockies podcast, and the Rockies picked a pretty good time to start heating up as we get close to the trade deadline. We talk about whose stock is rising as we near that trade season, and also whose stock is plummeting. That's all coming up next right here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use that code DNVR365. Place a bet for $5. Get $150 back in bonus bets. And boy, did we have a good game to talk about, at least for a little bit. And we'll look ahead towards the future here as the show goes on. Hank's going to be joining us here in just a moment. He is, as he always is on that Friday afternoon, wrapping up the Broncos show. So it's just me starting things off. But the Rockies got a incredible come-from-behind victory. It felt like a once-in-a-lifetime come-from-behind victory. I didn't actually know if they were going to have a walk-off at this point in the season. I mean, it feels like it's hard enough just to get a win for the Rockies, let alone to get a come-from-behind walk-off win. Now, I will say, this is the second series, if you're keeping track, and I think it was Scott who I saw on Twitter who said this. This is the second series against a good team that the Rockies have played where, give or take a couple runs here or there, the Rockies could have swept. I mean, if you look at the first two games of the series against the Giants, I mean, theoretically, the Rockies were leading both of those games in late innings by 3 runs and ended up kind of collapsing a little bit and ended up losing both of those games pretty much from the 8th inning on. And then that Cubs series I've talked plenty about how if the Rockies had just scored 4 or more runs every single game in that series, they would have swept that series. So I'm not to look into this whole moral victory thing. The Rockies still lost the series to the Giants, but it does feel good to play some good baseball, and especially offensively. Can we just say and recognize how impressive it was? The Rockies went out against arguably the best pitching staff in baseball, at least the best bullpen in baseball with the San Francisco Giants, and put up 20 combined runs against the San Francisco Giants. Many of those runs came against the bullpen. So for the first time this year, I don't know if you guys can see this, I get to wear my favorite shirt of the DNVR closet for Rockies. That is our Colorado Rakes. Now, I could not have worn this at any other point in the season, given that the Rockies pretty much average about 3 runs per game. Maybe that Diamondbacks game where they put up 12 runs came back and won 12-11 or 14-12 or whatever that score was. I probably could have worn it after that. But when you go put up 20 runs against the Giants, that's a good feeling. So Rowan in the chat says, I was at the game yesterday. Best baseball game I've ever been to. It was like a movie, man. We got to get you guys out to more baseball games. There was a good one. It was a good one, and I don't want to take that away from you at all. But I've got some really, really good baseball memories live. And I always say this because my wife she's not a huge baseball fan. She played college basketball. She tends to be of the mindset that baseball is a little bit too slow. Which is a red flag, I'll be completely honest with you, but she has other green flags that kind of make up for it. But I've been trying to get her into baseball recently, which has been really hard because of everything that you guys know. The Rockies are not making it easier for me. But I've told her, like, hey, look, 90% of the season, yes, it's like casual viewing, right? The Rockies diehard fans or whatever team you're rooting for, the diehard fans, we love to watch every single game and you're watching it on the edge of your seat, whatever. But when you get to the playoffs or you come into a meaningful baseball situation where, it's the 8th inning and it's a 1-run game and bases are loaded and you're down by 1 or whatever, get into the playoffs, same situation, you watch it from a different perspective. And I keep trying to explain that to her. And I just think until you see games like what happened yesterday, or even honestly what happened in the first 2 games of the series, despite the losses, the excitement factor was there for the Rockies. That's when you start to fall in love with baseball. So I'm glad, Rowan, that you were able to watch that game yesterday. That was an incredible win. We needed that to just for our sanity. And real quick, and Hank's just coming in here, so he's going to be jumping on in just a second. But there was someone else that I saw on our chat yesterday, or it was in the tweets, in my mentions yesterday, that was kind of frustrated with the way that things ended for the Rockies. Not the fact that they got a win, but the fact that Orlando Arcia was the one who got the walk-off hit. And, he was like, why does this have to happen, right? Like, we don't want Arcia to turn into anything. The Rocky, he was all worried that the Rockies are going to make this a thing now that Arcia had this big moment as a Rocky. He's going to become the next Jay Cave. And my response to him was like, look, dude, I get where you're coming from, but you have to take advantage of these wins as a fan for just the sanity of it. It feels good to get a win. We're not going to get a lot of these this year. Mm-hmm. So we have to enjoy these handful of wins that we get, especially a walk-off when we get the chance. Welcome into the show, Henry Chisholm. It's a good baseball day.
Yeah, if anybody is sad about that win, hand over the fan card. Go be a Yankees fan. We don't want you here
You're looking too long term. No.
Goodbye.
We don't need to we don't. And I think his name is Nicholas. Nicholas is a good Rockies fan. He cares. So I don't want to turn him away. I just want him to understand that you've got to take advantage of these losses. These wins. The Rockies are still going to be a historically bad team. That is going to continue to happen. So when you get a win like this, take advantage. A W is a W, Drew, 100%. So
Nicholas, I don't like you.
For a moment, I still like you, Nick, but you're gotta enjoy the wins when you get them. All right, we've got a packed show today, talking about a lot of different things. First thing I want to talk about, though, stock up, stock down. This is I was talking to a couple other Rockies media members, and we were talking about where the Rockies are at right now, and obviously it's bleak.
It's a quick conversation.
It is a quick conversation, but we were saying there are some big dates ahead of us in the Rockies calendar for a lot of teams, but especially for the Rockies, because you've got the trade deadline and you've got the draft, just a couple months away, less than a month to a couple months away. And it's important for us to really emphasize how meaningful the trade deadline is going to be for the Colorado Rockies, and the draft is going to be. Not just from a whether or not you do the right things, but it's going to show us how this team is committed to their rebuild. If this team goes out during this trade deadline and makes one kind of meaningless trade, it tells you a lot about the mindset of where the front office thinks this team is going to go and how they want it to come back from this. But on the other side of that, if they go out and they make a bunch of little trades or maybe a couple big trades, whatever that looks like, then that also tells you something. So it's important for us to start talking about this. And the fact that we are relatively seeing some good baseball being played from the Rockies should give you some semblance of hope that this team trade value, or at least some players trade value, might be going up. So stock up or stock down? We'll start with stock up. After seeing what we saw this last week, who do you think stock is going up entering that trade deadline?
Let's see. From a trade perspective, I'll start with Jake Bird. The stock was already high. Yeah. But the thing is, we've gone through so many of these trade deadlines where you trade somebody away and you're like, okay, cool. We got this guy who some other team didn't think would ever see the majors. Those are the guys that you're trading away. It's like Nick Mears last year. You trade him away. He's pitching pretty well. At least somebody wants him in the majors. Sure. And was that the Bradley Blaylock trade?
That was the Bradley Blaylock trade.
And I appreciate your love for Bradley Blaylock.
Well, but it's weaning a little bit.
And I think that to the Brewers, that would have been just a little bit predictable. He was Brewers, right?
Yeah, he was Brewers.
Because they did the other trade as well. But a lot of the time, the Rockies are trading guys who it's like, yeah, you're like a fringe MLB player and you're getting almost nothing. Jake Bird going from like good reliever to holy cow, the 3 straight strikeouts. Like he could be the difference for us. If we get an inning from him every single night in October, that really could be enough to take us over the top. I think even though the stock is already high, I still go right there just because the difference between that, like, oh, you're getting a team's 25th prospect and like, hey, maybe you're getting top 15 guy.
For sure.
That's exciting.
Jake Bird, not only is his stock already high, but it is continuing to go up. And there's a lot of factors for that. And I know we're kind of preaching to the choir. You guys all know this. But remember, Jake Bird has 2 more years of team control under his belt, which skyrockets his value beyond just the fact that he is, I would say, top 5 reliever in all of baseball, if not top 3 reliever in all of baseball right now. His numbers are incredible. He's first in innings pitched, first in strikeouts. His ERA is like top 3. Like every metric you look at. And
Coors.
On top of that, he's pitching at Coors. He's got a .41 ERA at Coors. That I don't know if anyone has ever done that in the history of the Rockies, and I'd have to check. So Jake Bird's stock is not only high from the fact that he is playing incredibly well, but he's also a very, very cheap, affordable, inexpensive guy that a team like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Mets, any team, any single team that is competing for a playoff and or World Series would be clawing to get. So here's my look at with Jake, and then we'll go to some of the other guys. Jake Bird should not be a Colorado Rocky by the All-Star break. If I'm Bill Schmidt, and granted, you do have to be a little bit careful with Jake. I think he's one of probably your only guy, trade-wise, that you really want to make sure you almost get overpaid for him, because there are going to be some desperate teams that need a really, really good reliever that are probably willing to overpay for him. So I want them to do it right. I don't want Jake Bird to go, to the Yankees for a couple nobodies that are not going to go anywhere, like the typical Rockies move. You got to be careful with Jake Bird. But with that being said, I do think he needs to be gone by the All-Star break. Otherwise, we've failed in that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it'd just be a waste. And, in a perfect world, we look back in 2007 and say, wow, I wish we still had Jake Bird. It'd be so nice to have Jake Bird right now. But so many things have to go right between now and then to even care about having that reliever at that point.
You're wasting one of the best relievers that's ever come through the Colorado Rockies organization as of now in the worst year of your entire franchise history. So it's frustrating, but the only way you can get better is to move on from guys like that. You got to be sellers. I do have a hot take that I want to throw out after this that's related to the whole trade deadline. So we're going to get to that in a little bit, but I see Freeman's name getting tossed out there. Freeman's stock up. Freeman's stock is up. But is Freeman a guy that you think the Rockies are going to trade and or couldn't get anything back from him? You have technically won the Nolan Jones trade as of now.
Yeah.
So, and he's not really old. I mean, he's not a 30-year-old vet. I mean, this is a guy who's 28, 27, something like that.
26.
Maybe 26 even. Okay, even better. So on paper, he's a guy that you could possibly move at the deadline.
Totally. So big picture, one of the issues with the Rockies, and add it to the list, is that they overvalue their own players, which is why you typically get to the trade deadline, they don't do anything, and then everybody's like, why the hell didn't you do anything? And they're like, well, we don't want to set the precedent that we're just going to be handing our guys away. Meanwhile, the rest of baseball is saying, this guy wasn't any good in the first place. You should be happy you could get somebody who, like, sure, maybe he never leaves AAA, but hey, like, at least you have a AAA center fielder for the next 5 years. And who knows, maybe in a pinch, you call him up, or maybe you get lucky and he figures something out. Tyler Freeman probably fits in that category of teams just don't really want him. Like, you can look at the numbers and get excited, like almost hitting 300. That is something there. But the whole reputation that he's built over, let's see, he got drafted in 2017.
Yeah.
You don't all of a sudden say, like, wait, were we wrong about this guy? You look at, like, the WAR this year. He has negative WAR this year, even with that. It's not like he's this great player. Anybody's going to be fooled by the fact that he's hot right now and trending upward. And because of that, like, sure, go ahead and trade him. If you want to bet on him and say, like, this could be a bench piece for us for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
I guess that's a stretch. Next 5 years, there's value there too. I just don't see.
Yeah.
If you get a decent return, go right ahead. I don't see that coming.
So someone, when I was at the game the other day, someone told me, we're not talking about Tyler Freeman enough. And I was like, are we? I mean, I think we kind of are. I mean, yes, he's playing great, but it's Tyler Freeman. No, and I don't mean that in any disrespect. The ceiling is very low. So good for him. He's playing well. And hopefully the Rockies can do something with that. But Either way, I don't see that being something crazy. I have been very vocal on this show about Brenton Doyle needing to be sold at the deadline, and I still think that has continued to be my mindset and will continue to be my mindset. Love Brenton Doyle as a player. Wish the Rockies were in a place where we could keep him. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. And as Mile High City Baby 303 says, sell the whole team. You're not wrong. You're not
available.
wrong. I mean, like the Rockies are absolutely going to be sellers. So I think they're going to have to. Now, I'm not saying they will do this because I don't run the Colorado Rockies. But I do think if it was up to me, you've got to be in a place where you're willing to make uncomfortable trades. Move Ryan McMahon, whose stock, in my opinion, has slightly gone up. Defensively, at least. I know his bat is struggling, but again, there are teams out there that need the defense. And Brenton Doyle, same thing. His bat has really, really been struggling. But you talk to anyone in baseball. I actually talked to one of the Giants reporters the other day who's kind of followed the Rockies from afar, and they were saying, Doyle, his bat, he has all the tools still. He's just in a slump. Like that, his optics are not as concerning. He just is in a major league slump. He will still continue to be an elite defender, an elite, outfielder, and a average bat. We'll give him that.
Yeah.
And so I think Doyle is going to be on that list, at least from my perspective. Ryan McMahon is another interesting one.
Going back to Doyle, though.
Yeah.
So the thing with him is, if there was ever a team that could justify a center fielder who is incredible defensively, but you don't necessarily trust his bat, it would be the Rockies. Like that would be when you have the biggest outfield in baseball, you do need good defense from your outfielders. With him, if you get a good offer, go ahead and take it. Like, I'm not tied to him, but the fact that you have him under cheap control through 2029, there's no rush to me. And if you think that there's a slump going on and that next year, maybe at this point he's hitting 300, or maybe he isn't, maybe the contact isn't there, but the power's way up. Maybe you wind up with a bunch of home runs. To me, if you're trading Brenton Doyle, the question is, if you essentially 4.5 years left of cheap control, you trade him when his value is highest. And I have a tough time believing that his value is the highest right now in the next month.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
And also, I did talk to Thomas Harding, MLB.com writer for the Rockies, about this, and he said the Rockies will most likely not trade Brenton Doyle for the reason that you just brought up, or at least the first reason you just brought up. He patrols center field at Coors Field, and you want to trust the guy who does that.
And you just don't have, like, maybe Veen could be that guy. Like, he is fast. There's just a level of chaos to him that is not something that you want.
It's a tough place to hold down. I mean, that center field is tough. We do have to hit our first break, but speaking of Zach Veen, I have a hot take regarding buyers and sellers and the trade deadline for the Rockies that I want to throw out there. See what you guys think and see if you agree on this. We'll hit on that after the break. Well, folks, as you know, if you've watched the DNVR Rockies podcast, you know we are big into our anti-Rockies parlay, which Spencer normally whips up for us. So I'll kind of put this one on your shoulders here for a second. I'll let you kind of piece your thoughts together. But at Bet365, if you use code DNVR365 when you sign up, you can deposit $10, choose between either a bet and get offer, place a bet of $5 or more, get $150 back in bonus bets. First bet safety net offer, placing a bet of up to $1,000 if your qualifying bet loses. You receive a match refund in bonus bets. We on the DNVR Rockies podcast say if the Rockies are going to suck, which they do, albeit they didn't yesterday, but they normally do, you might as well at least make some money off of it. And so what's our Bet365 bets looking like for today against the Rockies? So, if you're going against the Rockies.
If you're going to bet, you should probably bet against them. I mean, they do have a couple of 2-game win streaks so far this season. There's a chance that they could add, I think, a third. I wouldn't touch it. I go Braves to win the first 5 innings, or to lead after the first 5, not each of them individually. That'd be crazy, but the odds would be pretty cool. Braves to win the game by at least 3. Okay. All of a sudden, those two things combined, you get to plus 115. You would have hoped for a little bit better than that. And maybe Bryce Elder with 7 strikeouts get you to plus 375.
The K's haven't been there, man.
They haven't been there.
Spencer's actually lost his anti-Rockies parlay by just the strikeouts alone. So that's been a tough one for him.
Here's what I'd say. So you could either take first 5 innings and they win by 3, and you get 6 strikeouts, or you could get slightly better odds, actually significantly, plus 260 on the Rockies just to win versus the plus 210 on that.
I don't mind it.
The value probably is on the Rockies at this point if you're willing to actually pull the trigger, and I don't think I could.
All right. Well, must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Also, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Game Time. If you are going to any games or events here in the Denver area or wherever you are watching the show from, Game Time makes getting those tickets easier and faster than ever. Download that Game Time app, and you got incredible last-minute deals.
Yes.
You've got all-in prices, views from your seats, the lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And as we always say, and as you know, if you've used the Game Time app before, the tickets get cheaper, the prices get cheaper as you get closer and closer to the first pitch, tip-off, opening, I don't know, what do they do in theater? Puck drop, theater, the
curtain is the end.
Opening curtain.
First curtain.
First curtain. Sure. Yeah, we know what we're talking about. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are so far behind here. Sorry, Dion. All right. Hot take. I was talking about this with some other Rockies media members. I was actually talking about this with our good friends, Patrick Lyons, former host of the show, and also Kevin Henry, good friend of the pod. They threw out this idea, and I wanted to throw this out there to you guys and see what you think. They had kind of said, look, if the Rockies really wanted to rock the boat a little bit, to go really aggressive, which the Rockies are not known to do. But let's just say they put on their aggressive cap at the deadline and went all out. Is there a world in which the Rockies could be buyers and sellers simultaneously at the deadline? And what I mean by that is we already know they're going to be sellers, right? You're going to be offloading as much of your value as you can, hoping to get prospects, hoping to build up whatever young talent you possibly can. And that's the easy game plan that you can go with. But is there also a world in which you say, you know what? The prospects that we have in our farm system just haven't quite panned out the way that we want them to. So let's maybe package some of those guys up. Let's package Zach Veen. Let's package Carson Palmquist, Sean Sullivan, maybe even Yanquiel Fernandez. Package a couple of those guys up and send them out for a major leaguer who's pretty much ready to go right now, that can grow with you, that you can either trade a couple years down the road and or can grow with you as you hopefully get back to a competitive team. Is that something, and that's being very aggressive because that is a fine window to work, but is that something that you could possibly see the Rockies doing? Because that you look at the minors and you're like, man, there's no like parachute here. Our farm system, aside from a couple guys that could end up being decent for you, there's no big prospects anymore aside from Charlie Condon, who we'll talk about later. So do you possibly try to get some value from those guys now before they've really reached their peak, or do you still hold on to them and hope that they're a piece of your future?
Yeah, I mean, there's a case to be made. I think the case starts with the Rockies admitting they aren't good at developing players, which is just really tough to see happening.
Yeah.
For the GM to be like, farm system, we just aren't capable of turning our good prospects into good baseball players. We should send them away and just trade for somebody who's already developed. Odds are very slim, I think. I think there's a case to be made, though, because, again, the plan for the Rockies is probably what? In 3 years, we want to be back to competing for playoff spots, and if you're in, then you can have a chance to make a run. There might be players out there who you could acquire who could fit that timeline, but typically those cheap players who are good are just so expensive that it's tough to imagine the Rockies being willing to give up the prospects they would take to go get them.
It's also dangerous because if you do, you have to make sure you get a good deal on that. Because if you do end up losing 3 prospects when you are rebuilding, and let's say you ended up with for just the sake of this example, let's say you go trade Zach Veen, Adael Amador, and I don't know, throw in one extra guy that we've not really heard of. Bradley Blaylock even. Let's just throw him in there just because we know his name. And you end up getting a Tyler Freeman or someone of that nature, right? A guy who has, who can possibly be good, relatively young still, is developed, but doesn't have a huge upside. I think Rockies fans, including us, looks at that and says, you probably lost that because you're losing out on 3 potential guys that once they are developed could end up being a good player for you. Looking at what Ryan Ritter has been so far, and Felix brings him up in the chat. We'll talk about Ryan later in the show, but I don't think the Rockies. And here's actually what I said to Patrick and Kevin. I think a really good GM could handle that. I think a really good a Zambrowski, Epstein, like you go through some of the really good GMs in baseball, they could probably coordinate a situation like that. And I agree with you, Drew. I mean, like you said, trading away prospects, it does seem very counterintuitive to a rebuild.
Yep.
And that's why I wouldn't trust the Rockies to do that. I think a good GM could do that, but I mean, Bill Schmidt does not have the track record of being a good GM to make a very tricky deal like that.
Exactly. And like there are some of those guys, like if you want to trade Adael Amador, I'd be a fan. Like if somebody wants to treat him like an actual, top 5 prospect for a team, then absolutely make the deal, see what you can go get. It's just tough for me to imagine that they've been watching and they say, we're still willing to give that up.
Yeah.
And again, the Rockies are a team that could use the lottery tickets as much as I'm potentially out on him. To me, I think you start by just looking big picture at the Rockies and saying, what do they need? And I think, bullpen, you set aside. As everybody knows, that's the last thing you figure out. You hope the young guys develop and you wind up with a good bullpen in a couple years. That's just not something you worry about.
Bullpen is something if you realize you're a competitive team, you can trade for it at the deadline in that year.
So I don't worry about that at all. I think I look at the starting pitchers and say, I don't want to say I feel good about them. I don't even want to say I don't feel bad about them. What I feel about them is that I think that you've got a bunch of guys who can give you average play. And if Feltner were healthy and Gomber were healthy, then maybe you look at this and say, we've got those two, we've got Freeland, we've got Dolander, we've got, Carson Palmquist who looks good, like maybe even throw Tanner Gore, maybe you even throw Herman in there if you want to get crazy. At some point you got to get 1 or 2, maybe even 3 guys who are good pitchers. So if you can go snag one right now, go ahead. But that would mean if you do it now, you've got to pull the trigger on Herman. You've got to pull the trigger on Senzatela. Maybe even somebody else just to make things fit together so that you have a more concise rotation. And that's why I look at the top of this lineup and say, you need to find your top 4 hitters. Because right now, you just don't have anybody who really belongs there, except maybe Hunter Goodman. And, the Hunter Goodman trade thing, if there was ever a time to trade him, it would probably be right now. If you want to say that this is sustainable and not just, the fluke luck that other Rockies hitters have had in the past and then disappears the next year, then I'm fine with riding Hunter Goodman out.
Yeah.
Like you got to take some gambles there.
I think Goody's off the table.
But that's where I think if you can find a way to go get somebody who hits in the 4-hole, a good leadoff hitter, even like somebody who you look at and say, we can slot him in there for the foreseeable future, go right ahead. But you got to be sure that you're going to hit somebody who,
you best not miss.
He's your leadoff hitter for the next half decade. Go right ahead.
Exactly. No, I do think, like you said, it's you got to be. It's too complicated. So
I think
it's an interesting thing to think about, but it is too complicated.
And even when you play against the Mets, it's that top 4 that really scares you. After that, turns out we're scared of Jeff McNeil. Who could have seen that coming? But you've got a bunch of guys killer. Like if you wind up like, oh, Ryan McMahon's hitting in the 8-hole, 7-hole, that's just fine. Yeah. Like over the next 5 years, that's just fine. Or I guess 3 years, including this year on his contract, that's just fine. Jordan Beck, you want to say he's solid enough on defense. We like what we see hitting. We're going to slot him in the bottom half of the lineup. That's just fine. And I feel that way about just about everybody in the lineup. The problem is you just can't have 9 of those guys in the lineup, especially when a couple of those guys maybe don't even fit that definition. If you want to find somebody who's in that top 4, go right ahead. But I wouldn't be trading anybody else who you potentially slot in. And to me, an Amador, I never see him as somebody who you want in that group. Like his bat's never going to be that good. Yankeel is a potential power hitter. Odds maybe a little bit long, but I could at least I see the world in which he's your 4-hole hitter, he's your 5-hole hitter. He turns into a cargo type.
Yeah, give him a chance too. That's the other part.
Exactly.
Too. Like, give him a chance.
And
Let him develop.
Exactly. Veen potentially could be that leadoff type hitter who you want to move around the bases. Anybody who doesn't fit that mold, move him out, trade him for somebody. I could get behind it.
Yeah.
Tough to do though.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, you brought up Goodman. I think Goodman's off the table.
You think so?
Yeah, trade wise. I think Tovar's off the table, obviously, but everyone else I think is at least could be in the conversation. And I think if you talk to Bill Schmidt, and I actually, if I had seen him, I was meaning to ask him that this last week was who's untouchable, just to see what he said, but I didn't get a chance to see him. We did see Dick Mumford at the game, by the way. I could be wrong. That may be the first time that I've seen him, at least with my own eyes, at Coors Field this year. He has not been too keen on showing himself out at Coors Field.
Employees of the month, he goes out there and does it. It's the right thing to do. Good on him for doing it. But again, it's very nice guy. I would imagine in some ways nice to work for. Seems like a supportive, but maybe doesn't have the...
Yeah, it's time for a little change in scenery.
A lot of lamb, not enough lion.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with the lamb.
Hey, we were talking, I know I think it was Felix brought up Ritter in the chat. We got to take our second break, but after the break, what happens to Ryan Ritter when Tovar returns? Because I think Ritter's been playing pretty well. So we have the Ryan Ritter conversation. And I also want to have a little bit of a debate on something that I heard on the radio about the Rockies the other day that got pretty heated. And I want to have that conversation here with us. So we'll touch on both of those when we come back. Well, folks, one of my favorite parts of baseball season is, of course, getting to drink a nice, cold, refreshing Coors Light. Coors Light is my favorite light beer. And every once in a while, I get to go up to the party deck, get to go hang out, get to, leave the press box and go hang out with the cool kids up at the party deck. And just getting your hands on a nice, refreshing Coors Light. There's nothing better. I mean, I don't think there's anything that goes better with baseball. Maybe hot dogs. But like Coors Light, Coors Field, the Rockies, it all pretty much goes hand in hand. So
I mean, Coors Light, especially $3 Coors Lights before first pitch. That's just... And they come in the cut. Like there's something about that. If there's
one positive thing we could say about Dick Mumford, it is the fact that he signed off on $3 Coors Lights before first pitch. We can appreciate that.
And the thing is, though, if not for those, nobody's showing up before the third inning.
Coors Light brings fans to the game.
It's an extra hour of. Yep, there you go.
That's the way you enjoy Rockies baseball. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company in Golden, Colorado. Also, I want to give a shout out to our good friends over at Raising Cane's. If you're heading out on your next summer road trip, which I actually did, I think it was last weekend, order at raisingcanes.com on the Cane's mobile app to satisfy your chicken finger fix in a snap. At Raising Cane's, every chicken finger is hand battered and cooked to order. Every crinkle cut fry is a crispy, perfectly salted, just an incredible combination they have there. And it is really good road trip food. I mean, like it is, you drive by a Raising Cane's on your way out of town or whatnot, and it's pretty solid. You've got the fries, you've got the chicken fingers, you can even go with the Texas toast, a personal favorite. I mean, it's good. And if you have a passenger princess like I do, she's got the dipping sauce ready for me to go. I know.
That's nice.
I don't know if she appreciates being called a passenger princess.
Probably not. Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Get your order today at Cane's and keep the road trip going. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. All right, Ryan Ritter. He has a 6-game hitting streak. Is that? I think it's 6. He's hitting every single game that he's been on the big league team, which is good for him, man. It is great to see him keeping that going. I think I saw, and I actually don't remember if it was someone in the chat who said this on Twitter or if it was another fan who brought this up on Twitter. The fact that his hit streak goes back before he got called up.
True.
It wasn't in this chat, by the way, Dion, but it was. I think it was on Twitter, and someone said that he was on like a 20-something game hit streak going back from before he got called up. So if that's true, good for him, man. Ryan Ritter looks good. Now, he is still going through some growing pains.
Yes.
He's striking out a lot. Welcome to the Rockies. But he's getting on base and he's getting hits. And, when he's not striking out, he's getting on base and getting hits. So I think if you're judging based off of what it's like making that transition from AAA to the big leagues and how challenging that can be for even guys like Jack Caglianone and big hitters like that. I think he's doing good. I would actually grade him positively on his call up. So now it brings up the question of what happens when Tovar comes back, because Tovar's not out forever. I mean, he's probably going to be back in the lineup by the end of June. So what do you do with Ryan Ritter? Do you send him back down? Do you move him over? Do you cut someone else? What's the deal?
Well, it starts with what's best for Ryan. Like, it's not just what's best for the Rockies, it's what's best for him. From what I've seen, first of all, 6-game hit streak, give him a lot of credit. I would love to see a multi-hit game. Still yet to see one of those.
Sure.
6 hits.
But he's got a couple
triples.
Can the triples make up for them?
Absolutely.
Like he's got 2 triples, man.
There's a lot to like. And I think like results, B, maybe even B+. Like you look at the 417 slugging, solid. 6th among the 24 Rockies who've taken it at bat for them this season. That is awesome. Process, not quite as good as the results he's getting potentially. I actually missed yesterday the hit. I heard that it was right
at the shortstop. It was a liner,
okay.
but I don't remember who was running.
Yeah.
But they kind of got in the way and then jumped over the ball, and it kind of ate up the shortstop.
I heard there was an 8-pitch at bat though.
Yes,
which is a step in the right direction, because those are the kinds of things that we just hadn't seen from him. It's first of all, the strikeouts need to go away. Has he walked yet? No walks yet. And I think those kind of go hand in hand, where it's just like it can't just be swing every time. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. You give him credit for the fact that whenever he makes contact, he's hitting the ball hard, in part because he's swinging really hard. And maybe a veteran would say, maybe that's not the swing you need every time. Maybe there's a way to be, to get the on base percentage up just a little bit. But again, results, can't complain. I wonder a bit about the sustainability. As long as he is kind of fighting through, though, and finding a way to get the ball out there and hitting a triple every couple games, you ride with it. And I think that means it probably means second base. I don't know what that means for the rest of your lineup.
So you can pretty much choose between.
No Big Mike makes it easier.
No Big Mike does make it easier, because so I was just going to say you can choose between Keston, Orlando, or Tyro.
Yeah.
In that infield, a guy that you could DFA or option or whatever. I think all 3 of those guys would be DFAing. I think it would be Keston. I think you'd move RC over to first.
Probably, yeah.
And you would switch Ritter between second base and Tyro. And when he's not playing second, I think he would be DHing. And then you would have to pretty much say Hunter Goodman is your long-term catcher on the days that Goodman needs a day off, which I think they already have, by the way. I'm not saying that as new information, but
it is until it isn't.
On the day that Goodman needs a day off, like yesterday, which I didn't like that, by the way.
No.
At least not having him as a DH. On a day you need Goodman having a day off, you put Goodman as the DH and you say, Ritter's going to be the DH that day. Or excuse me, Ritter's going to play second base that day, and vice versa. So you can move that around. Yes, Ritter can play third base, so that's another position. Yeah. I think Keston has shown me nothing outside of like one RBI hit that I think he got the other day.
Every RBI that the Rockies get, you're like, I don't know, maybe you need to keep him in the lineup. He did do that.
I actually felt like our guy Nicholas, who was upset about the Arcia walk-off, because I was kind of like, I'm pissed that he did that, because I just, like, Keston was just, again, no offense to Keston, but like, he needs to go, man. He's not the answer. He's not the answer. Now that Arcia can play first base too, so, but I do think you got to keep Ritter up here until he just falls off. Oh, and I was going to say, going back to why he's kind of a strikeout or bust, or strikeout or home run kind of guy, or strikeout or hard hit ball. I was talking to Spilly about this the other day, I believe it was, and I was kind of asking him about the transition between the minors and the majors from a hitting perspective, and he was saying that a major league fastball is a lot heavier than a AAA fastball. Yep. You can get away with a lot more in the minors as a hitter than you can at the big leagues. And we've noticed that, like, his fastball, or he was getting kind of blown by on like 95, 96 mile an hour fastballs. So you can tell his bat was coming from behind. So an easy adjustment that a lot of, or I would say a common adjustment that a lot of hitters make when they're getting beat on the fastball, is that they try to speed up their bat they try to swing harder, basically. And so you're seeing those really hard swings from Ritter. And every once in a while, he's putting it all together and he's getting contact. And so he's crushing the baseball.
Yes.
But the flip side of that is that he's getting beat by those fastballs. If the pitcher gets ahead in the count, he's kind of fighting from behind with that heavy swing right now. So I do think that is a minor adjustment that needs to be made.
Yep.
But it's good to notice like what's going on from him and to see him making adjustments in certain at-bats and getting on base and having those good at-bats. So I think Ritter needs to stay on the team.
And it might be an adjustment better made in the majors than the minors.
Sure.
Like sometimes like Tolia, whatever's going on, it makes sense. It's like, this just isn't working. You send him down, figure it out down there, where, as Scott points out in the chat, it's going really well. And it's what you want to see. And it might not even be like the longest stint down in the minors. But I think that with Ritter, if you're finding answers to these problems, you ride it out in the majors until you just can't do it. As long as the Rockies are thinking that we know what the issues are and we can fix them, it's great. It just sucks knowing that it's the Rockies who are the ones who have to find those answers.
You don't feel a lot of faith and trust in the development and or adjustments of the Rockies.
And what was it 2 days ago? They had Aaron Cook, who I didn't realize was doing things with the Rockies. I'm not sure, but they had him on the broadcast. And I was like, wait, Aaron Cook is there? Somebody who has some answers for these young pitchers. This is incredible. And those are the things that they can do. It's like, you hear that from Spilly. It's like, can Spilly be down there?
My mom was watching the game from Seattle, and she's not we grew up in Seattle, so she doesn't know the Rockies that well. And she's texting me, and she's like, oh my gosh, the broadcast has been talking to this Cook guy for the last 30 minutes. She's like, I just want to watch the game, and this Cook guy has been on my screen. And I'm like, Mom, that's Aaron Cook. Like, come on, what are you talking about?
I don't know what he's doing, but if they're paying him to an hour a day talk to different pitchers that the Rockies have, that is exactly what they need. That is what is missing from this team. Like, to bring Charlie Blackmon back to hope to do some of those sorts of things as well. Like, those are the steps you take to solve some of the issues you've had, because like, that's a guy who knows how to pitch at Coors.
Yeah.
So I love that. And hopefully you're getting that good advice, first of all, from the coaches, who I don't think anybody has any faith in at this point, but hey, like, you got to do something.
Got to do something.
Clint Hurdle's in there somewhere. Like, that, there's at least one that you trust. But yeah, hopefully you're finding those answers and you see him build. And for as long as you think that he's going to continue to like improve and solve those problems, you keep him up there and keep trying to solve them. My concern is that it just feels like a lot of it is unsustainable the way he's doing it right now. And as much as we like this 6-game hit streak, he's batting 250, he's slugging 417, that OPS plus at 86, like, he's getting by. You feel like you're pretty close to it kind of falling apart, just the way the process is working. You just got to keep finding answers so that when it happens, you could solve it quickly.
I hope so. The worst thing that you could possibly do is put him on the bench. I mean, he's got to be getting, he needs at-bats. He needs to be getting at-bats.
And I also, am I crazy in thinking that next year's second baseman might just be Thairo Estrada or Orlando Arcia? Like, I think that there's a world that exists where you say, hey, we get to the end of the year, Tyro's batting 261 right now. If he's batting 261 at the end of the year, I'm not sure what his deal is. You bring him back and let him play second base. You're not solving every one of these problems this offseason. Eventually, you need a long-term answer. Tyro's 29. Orlando Arcia's 30. Yeah. Like, you could get a couple good years out of them if either
during a rebuild.
Is good enough to do that. So I don't want to say I like what they have done at second base, but I would say that given the situation they're in,
it's sustainable.
It makes sense, and it might be the right patch, so that if you blow money on a third baseman this offseason in a world where you trade Ryan McMahon, maybe you blow money on an outfielder this offseason, just say, hey, we need, it's one more piece, it's less to solve. There's still a spot for Yankees or whoever is still in the competition, but second base, I don't think necessarily needs to be changed right now, although it obviously could be. If there's a long-term answer that you can find, you find that. And that's why I think the fit is a little bit interesting. And if Ritter needs a place to go, that's the answer. Yeah. It also opens the door for a trade of Ryan McMahon, bump him to third. And
it very much does.
I don't know. It feels like there are a couple options, though, which is nice.
Speaking of minor leaguers, real quick, I want to jump ahead just real fast before we hit our last break. Charlie Condon. I don't want to talk too much about him, but he's hitting 486 in the month of June, playing very well. He's getting some good hard hit balls. Power still hasn't really come back, but he's still putting the ball in play. How quickly do you move him up? And I don't mean up to the big leagues. He should not be in the big leagues, but how quickly?
I I want to see power. Okay. I think that if he keeps doing what he's doing a month from now, you gotta call him up.
Yeah.
But as of right now, the reason I'm not calling him up today is because I want to see the power. I want to see the power come back. And maybe it just doesn't happen. That's why I give him a few more weeks, a month, whatever. But if he has a 2 home run game today, tomorrow he's going to AA. If he has 2 home runs in the next week, he's up. But the fact that he only has 2 home runs, I think this season still, you've solved one of the problems. Let's solve both problems and move him up. In a perfect world, if you don't get the perfect world in a couple weeks, you call him up.
I think come trade deadline, we're going to see promotions from Condon, Karros, Carrig. Is Hughes at AAA already? I think he is. Or is he in AA?
I think
still?
AA.
Okay, so maybe even Hughes. Hughes has been okay. I do think we see some promotions coming up here soon, and I think Condon will be in the mix if he continues to hit well. So yeah, it's good to see. We had to skip over that last topic, the little debate that I wanted to get into. So we'll hit on that after this break because I don't know if you guys heard our good buddy D-Mac on Altitude the other day going off about whether it's a managerial problem or a player problem.
Okay, so that seems like an easy answer.
It does, but he took an interesting take. So we'll get to it after this last break. All right, Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, of the Colorado Rockies, and the official vehicle of my personal household. I am a proud owner of a 2007 Toyota Highlander that is still getting me to and from every single place I need to go, and it's doing it in comfort and style. Look, Toyota is an incredible car. I've said it so many times on the show, and I will say it long after I have one day retired from DNVR in the year 2095. I mean, Toyota is my go-to car because there's so many good things about it. They've got trucks, SUVs, all-wheel drives, four-wheel drives. They've even got some great sedans. They've got hybrids. They've got so many choices, and they're all top-notch. They last forever. They never fall apart. I mean, it is just an incredible vehicle to own. So see for yourself why they are the best in the game. Check out all of the options here in Colorado. You can visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Also got to give some love to our friends over at LinkedIn, because if you are a small business trying to find the right candidate for your job, LinkedIn makes it easier to find those perfect candidates that fit your business. And we know how important it is to find the best candidate for your job. Like I said, at the end of the day, the most important thing for your small business is the quality of candidates. And with LinkedIn, you can feel confident that you are actually going to get the best. Their promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified applicants through the LinkedIn algorithm. And based on LinkedIn data, 72% of SMBs, small businesses using LinkedIn, say that LinkedIn helps them find high quality candidates. Find out why over 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Rockies. That's linkedin.com/Rockies to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you, Drew, for confirming that Hughes is in AAA. I did think I'd seen
2 weeks
him.
ago.
I did think I'd seen him in AAA. I just, I was spacing on. We got a lot of guys we're keeping track of down there in the minors, and I couldn't remember if he was still hanging out in AAA or not. But hopefully we see some promotions. I don't know if we see Hughes, and actually I think if we end up seeing Hughes on the big league squad, that means there's some injuries and stuff. Senza is an interesting situation with the Rockies, because I think if he has another bad start and you get Feltner back and Gomber back, Feltner's a little bit of a ways out, but especially if you get Gomber back and you've got Palmquist maybe still doing good, Senza might be on his way out. We were saying that about Herman, and Herman kind of turned things around, but Senza is a tough watch right now, man.
Yeah.
There's just nothing going right. I mean, he pitched, he got through the first inning and it was like, hey, we got through the first inning. And then the second inning just collapsed, and you're like, my God, man.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Everything is hard hit too.
It feels like he's just a placeholder until you get somebody who's ready to take that spot. Because Carson Palmquist has probably done everything you could have hoped of, right?
Sure.
He may not be blowing people away, but he at least looks like he belongs for the most part. He's had some flashes that make you think like...
Yeah, he's had good moments.
Have
we had a Senza start that was like clean the whole way through? I mean, he has one win, and that one win was the second game of the year. And if you remember, the second game of the year, that was a stressful start. I mean, the ball was getting put in play, and that was, a defensive gem from our entire team. I mean, I think every single player had like a web gem by the end of that game. And, Dick Monfort was rolling over saying, hey, best defense in the history of baseball. And that obviously didn't pan out, but that was like the only win that Senza has.
Yeah. No, it's bad. I mean, didn't give up a run there against the Mets. But yeah, 7 earned runs, 4, 4, 6, 4, 4, 4. 1 earned run back on 420.
How many innings
must have been celebrating? 6 against Washington.
Oh, he did go 6. Okay, so that was a decent start.
Yeah, so if you go back
he's got one good
dozen starts to
spring training,
April, then
exactly.
spring training.
Yeah.
But the tough part there is, okay, so what you'd like to do is move on from him as soon as you have a starting pitcher who's ready, whether it's a guy who's healthy off of the injured list or whether it's Hughes who's ready for a call-up, which seems like it's a long way away. But the problem is you owe him $12 million this year, you owe him $12 million next year, and then after that's a club option, so you can get out of it. But are you willing to just eat essentially $18 million that you owe him second half of this year with next year to move on? That's a tough sell. So more likely you're moving him to the bullpen, or that's your goal. And in the process, you may say we're sending you down to AAA, which he might have to approve. I'm not totally sure.
Yes, he has a service time.
So
it's a tough situation.
You're
man.
really stuck.
Yeah, you are. I think moving him to the bullpen is probably the best.
I think that probably makes sense, and then he can eat some innings there when you need him to. Because you're not going to win games from behind anyway.
Yeah, and you could also put him in when you don't. Like, you could put him in the Angel Shiviji moments where you're like, team's down by 4 runs and you just need someone to come in and eat up 4 innings.
Exactly.
3 innings or whatever it is.
So I think that probably makes the most sense.
Yeah. So anyways, Sens is tough. It's unfortunate, but we don't need to spend too much time there. I was listening to the radio the other day. We our good friends over at Altitude was listening to their morning show, Mosier, Lombardi, and Kane. And I think DMAC called in and was trying to argue and make the argument that a large chunk of the Rockies' problems and the reason the Rockies are in a position that they're in right now are because of their managerial situation, because Bud Black wasn't a good fit, and now he believes Warren Schaefer isn't a good fit and is losing the Rockies games. And I couldn't remember the exact number. Maybe I'll try to get DMAC to come on this show. This isn't also a situation where he just doesn't watch games. DMAC is live tweeting every single game, God bless him.
Yep.
So he watches the games. But he is convinced that the Rockies are in this position that they're in because of poor managerial decisions. And Vic was pretty animated that that was the dumbest thing he's ever heard. And Spencer actually texted me because Spencer was also pretty animated that was the dumbest thing that he's ever heard. So I wanted to get your take. Do you think the Rockies' issues are managerial or player? Do you think the managerial part of it has any weight whatsoever? What's your thoughts on that?
So I would say the managers haven't been good. That's not the big issue though. I mean, they've lost 55 games. Maybe the managers have lost them 5. If you want to go crazy, lost them 10. The rest of those though are because the team just isn't good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of a metaphor, like growing a beard. You want a good beard. There are 2 steps. You need to be able to grow the beard. And then second, you need to be able to like trim it around the edges and make it look good. The manager's job is to like take what you got and kind of like make it kind of like fit together. If you can't just grow the damn beard in the first place, there's not much the manager can do to make it look. And that's where things go wrong.
But like, see, his argument though was that like the Rockies have shown that they can, that they've shown they can put up 12 runs against the Diamondbacks. They've been in 3 games in a row against one of the best teams in baseball and the Cubs. Like they've had lineups this year where like they can hit and they're all professionals and all this kind of stuff. Like, that's his argument, is that these are professional baseball players and that if they were managed correctly, they would be playing above where they are today. Brenton Doyle would be hitting 300. Tolia would still be on the team. All these kind of things.
No, I mean, you just can't go that far. Like, that's like, first of all, baseball, the fun part of it is that it is all the margins are so slim. So you have a bunch of, it's like, oh, he bats 260 over the course of 160 games. This guy bats 280. This guy bats 220. And all those differences show up in the randomness game to game, where it's like, you're a guy who over the course of the season might hit 300 on any given day. You might be 0 for 5. You might be 5 for 5. But it's these big trends that happen in these spurts that decide each individual game. So the fact that oh no, all these guys who hit 230 all happen to hit on the same day. That's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you're capable of putting up 12 runs, well, yeah, duh. And I bet you go through any bad team in the history
I'm
of
capable
baseball
of getting a base hit out
exactly.
there. Like
you play 162 games.
I will get a hit at some point.
Exactly. And the fact that their highs all aligned on this day and the lows, that's just a thing that happens in baseball. Like you go back, the Cincinnati Red Stockings or whatever of 1876, who were also really, really bad. Yeah. You go back,
the Cleveland Spiders.
They'll have some 12-run games. You look back at all these 10 worst teams in the history of baseball. They all had games like that. That's just the way baseball works. And yeah, like I think we were at the Mets game last Sunday. And somebody didn't get pulled as quickly as we thought they probably should. Maybe it was
Agnos.
Kyle Free. Was it Agnos? Yeah.
No. On Sunday's game? Yeah, I don't remember that one. That was the
I'm sitting
sweet
there
game.
thinking like, yeah, maybe this is one where
We were 7 Coors Lights in by then.
exactly like an inning before, could you have pulled this guy? And it was pretty obvious. And
His argument,
there have been some of those examples.
his argument was like that, when Agnos had the bases loaded or whatever it was and walked in that one run, that he should have been, or maybe it was Kinley, or maybe it was that day after, like he should have been pulled.
Yep.
We already knew, we saw that his stuff was not there, and you should have pulled him. Instead, you leave him in there. He ends up giving up, a couple more runs, and then it's like now Vodnik comes in and he's in a position where he's, he's got to figure this out now coming from behind. So I understand that maybe you could say that there have been a game or two that weren't managed properly. You also have to remember this is a first year manager
And
in
yesterday,
Warren
Hunter
Schaefer.
Goodman,
And
bad idea.
Sure. Yeah. The Hunter Goodman move yesterday, I did not like at all, having him on the bench, not even in the DH spot. I get that you give him a day off, but come on. But so, yeah, it's the way I look at it with the players versus managerial situation is I'll never blame the players specifically, because the players are doing the best that they can with the skills that they have. Like I had a dog trainer that a long time ago that would say this about like when we were training our dogs, and our dog, my dog would do something they weren't supposed to do, and she would tell me, look, like it's all about education. Your dog is not intentionally trying to piss you off by chewing up your shoes or whatever it is. Your dog is doing the best that he or she can with the education that you as the owner have provided that dog. Dog is instinctual. It only has so many, it only has so many ways it can.
It's just a dog.
It can live its life.
Yep.
It can make decisions, all this kind of stuff. And it's doing the best that it can with the education you've provided. Rockies players, or baseball players as a whole, are doing the best that they can with the skills that they were born with and that they have been trained into. And so if Tyler Freeman, or I don't even know, like if Adi Alamador, for example, is never going to be a guy who can physically hit 50 home runs, you can't expect him to be that kind of guy. So I don't put this on the Rockies players. I don't blame the Rockies players. They're out there doing the best that they can. They're trying real damn hard to make a living and to play professional baseball, the hardest sport in all of professional sports outside of hockey and golf. I put this on the ownership and or front office for crafting a lineup, a set of players where all of their ceilings are lower than the rest of baseball.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got a couple guys whose ceilings are a little bit higher, but for the most part, the majority of the Rockies players' ceilings are very low compared to other teams' players. I don't blame the players for that. I blame the front office and the owners. And I don't even blame the manager for that either.
Yep. I think the managing probably has been bad. And if you want to go crazy, you could say, hey, if they had just played all their cards perfectly throughout the season, they could have twice as many wins. Guess what? 15 games back from the Dodgers in that world. Like, the manager just does not have the power to make the players good. Like, you just don't have the talent to work with. You're telling them, we want you to build a masterpiece sculpture, and you're giving them a can of Play-Doh, and you're like, yeah, what you made from the Play-Doh was shit. And you're like, yeah, guess what? It was. And you could have given that Play-Doh to somebody else, and they could have made someone look decent instead of just like this ugly little thing. Yeah. Just doesn't matter, though. You're not making whatever David. You're not making David out of Play-Doh. It just doesn't work that way. It's only a little cup of Play-Doh. It's this big.
You're not Pablo Picasso out here painting with crayons.
Exactly. Give Pablo Picasso crayons. He's not making a masterpiece.
Yeah. I get you, man. I mean, it's the same thing that Dave Roberts said. You could put Casey Stengel in there to manage the Rockies, and he wouldn't be able to put together a winning lineup. It's the way it is, and unfortunately, it's the situation we find ourselves in. But look, we did have a win, and I am grateful for that, man.
Time of my life. I'll never forget last night.
Never forget it. I mean, as Rowan said, it was the best game he's ever been to.
Orlando Arcia turning, flexing.
You love to see that. Love to see that.
It's a long shot, but hey, he was an all-star 2 years ago. 2 years ago today, he was getting voted in, going in there. Like, won't be a long-term solution. Maybe you're lucky he plays till 35 and you get him under contract. You could get 5 years of decent second base play if you're really, really lucky. And those are the things that change the future. Because at some point, you got to find a second baseman. If it's one of those guys, sure.
Well, just real quick, for those watching on TV, we are going to overtime. Just briefly, we're going to be heading into overtime, so head to thednvr.com to continue the conversation. Do you see when Orlando Arcia won the game and Spilly was interviewing after the game, and Spilly asked him, how does it feel to be a Rocky? And he says that. I'm like, why are you asking that question? What do you think he's going to say?
Well, and the thing is, so we get to hear the question first because it has to get translated.
Yeah,
and so you're watching his face, like, you're just like, oh, his face is going to drop here. His face is going to drop here. And it's like, no.
And he's like, my wife's favorite color is purple. I'm like, that's cool. What a great answer.
If you find one guy that you didn't expect to be a starter next year who you feel good about, hey, call that a success for the rest of the year. And maybe that's him. Maybe it's Ryan Ritter at third base or second base. Maybe it's Jordan Beck. You're like, oh, this guy is a staple. Maybe Tolia comes back. Like, that's what those are what we live for right now. And maybe that's a spark he needs to turn it back on after 2 years of it really not being on.
Maybe, man. Well, the Rockies are on the road. They're playing the Braves. Braves kind of falling apart. Still have good pieces, but they are falling apart.
It's possible.
What do the Rockies do against them? You won't be on the show Monday, so what's the deal with the Rockies?
Well,
Friday,
I mean,
Saturday,
so
Sunday.
about half the time this season they've gotten swept. Maybe even a little more than that. I go with it. They get swept by the Braves. Braves get back on track. But hey, I would love an Orlando Arcia comeback. Show them what's up game.
Is there a world in which I was saying this before the show, or like as the show was starting? Mm-hmm. The Rockies have had 2 series now against 2 very good teams, the Giants and the Cubs, where if you rearrange like 1 or 2 runs, you sweep them. Yeah. Like, not only you play competitive, you sweep those teams.
Totally.
Is there a world in which the Rockies actually win a series against a good team? Not getting ahead of myself, but win a series against a good team.
Again, that's baseball. That's how baseball works. I think. Let's just say Ryan McMahon, he might be awful the rest of the season. He's still going to get another 50 hits, you would imagine, over the course of the season. Maybe he gets 10 of them in the next 3 games. Maybe all that lines up. You got the Tyro Estrada, not really a power guy, but guess what? He's probably going to hit a couple home runs at some point. Maybe both of those are next. It's baseball. At some point, the stars just align. The numbers all line up, and you hit these ones. It's like playing a slot machine, and you could go hit over the next 3. There's a reason the casino always makes all the money, but at some point, you're just going to come up and say, hey, 12 runs, back to back to back. You did it.
In the words of our old friend Bud Black, that's baseball.
Yeah. Something has to happen.
Something does have to happen. That's going to do it for us on the show today. This was a good one. This was fun. I enjoyed it. Always fun after a win. Mm-hmm. Rockies will be playing the Braves, and then we'll be doing our next show on Monday. Shout out to Dion for making us look good as our producer, and shout out to the Rockies for raking, for actually hitting the baseball these last few days. It's been fun baseball, despite some losses. It has been fun baseball. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.